Hello, my darlings, and welcome to a new episode of After Dark Fairy Tales. I have another After Dark Fairy Tale for you guys, and this tale is actually a sequel. Yes, the first one I narrated was called Hothead, and it was done by a very, very talented author named Daniel Hayes. He enjoyed my narration of his first story so much that he did a sequel called Hothead Returns. I got permission from Daniel to retitle it Hothead 2, The Soul Collector, and I enjoyed the sequel just as much as the first one, and I hope you guys will too. Daniel is a very talented writer, and I had to put out the sequel. He asked me if I wanted to take a look at it, and I did, and loved it. So you guys let me know what you think about it, though. It's just as dark and creepy as the first one. For any of you guys who haven't checked out the first Hothead, please do. I'll put the link to the first one in the description box below. But I'm going to narrate Hothead 2 to you guys, and you let me know what you think in the comments. I loved it, so I hope you guys will too. To all my new subscribers, I'd like to say welcome to After Dark Fairy Tales. Hope you guys are enjoying the stories, and thank you for the likes and the comments and everything. I try to interpret these talented authors' stories the best way I can, and I hope I'm doing that through my narration. And that's enough blabbing for right now. I'm going to get to this cool, creepy tale, and I want you guys to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hothead 2, The Soul Collector by Daniel Hayes. The Grand Museum of the Macabre stood on the outskirts of Gemstone City, where a huge crowd of people were waiting to go inside for the grand opening. The museum was 2 stories tall and looked like it was made from ash straight from the pits of hell. 2 big pillars stood on top of a long staircase that led to the main entrance. A huge blood-red banner was hanging from pillar to pillar, which read, "Grand Opening," in big, bold yellow letters. Winter was just starting to settle in, and icicles hung from the trees that looked like daggers, eager to fall in the moonlight. "What's taking them so long? My feet are getting sore, and it's cold out here," said Alice. She was always impatient, and today was no different. She puffed away at her cigarette and couldn't figure out why she was here waiting to go inside of this eerie-looking museum. The place seemed to pop up out of nowhere, but her husband, Larry, insisted that they go. In an effort to keep warm, Alice started to bounce up and down like a bunny rabbit. She turned to face Larry and noticed that he was in a dreamlike trance. He wasn't the only one. The entire crowd stood completely still, with all eyes facing the main entrance, like a group of military soldiers standing at attention. "Larry, what the hell is wrong with you? Are you sick or something?" asked Alice. Larry said nothing in return and kept his eyes glued on the main entrance. Alice quickly reached over and gave Larry a nudge. He still wouldn't respond. "Well, you picked one heck of a time to turn into a complete dickwad." At that very moment, the main doors to the museum swung open. A tall man that looked like a circus announcer stepped out. He was wearing tight white pants, a big red jacket with gold trim, and a big black top hat with matching boots. His mustache was curled on each end, which sat perfectly beneath his long, pointy nose. His eyes darted back and forth like a swinging pendulum ready to fall on some helpless victim. "Welcome, my children. You all look like lambs ready for slaughter. I want you all to follow me. I have something very special to show you. He turned and walked back inside. The crowd, almost in unison, followed close behind him. Alice quickly tossed her cigarette to the side and thought to herself, this guy needs to come with a new gimmick. Well, I guess I better get in and see what this is all about. She lost sight of Larry, who seemed to disappear into the crowd. As she walked inside, she noticed how smooth the walls were. They were a deep black that looked like an empty void. The brown and black marbled floor was a sight to behold, but what caught her eye was the paintings. The artwork and attention to detail looked unparalleled. Each painting she saw showcased a different person doing what she could only describe as something that they loved. One painting had a man riding a bike in the summer. Another one showed a lonely woman fishing by a stream. These types of paintings flowed down the hallway like a gentle breeze that ended at another set of doors. Alice was lagging behind the crowd as they followed their host. She watched as he led them into the room, saying, I want to start this tour by showing you all my new collection of wax dioramas. I think you will find them very tasteful. Alice thought she should catch up with the crowd and decided to abandon her study of the paintings. As she walked down the hallway, she noticed a room full of statues. She couldn't help herself. Her curiosity was like a cat. She needed to get a closer look. The statues depicted humans with terrified expressions permanently imprinted on their faces, which she found to be deeply disturbing. How sick is this? This place really is creepy. Maybe I should find Larry and get the hell out of here, she thought. She rushed out of the statue room as quick as lightning and raced down the hall to find Larry in the other room. Everyone was sitting down, gathered in the middle. They were facing an empty stage that had an empty diorama on it. On each side of the room stood several dioramas that were not empty. The host was nowhere in sight, so Alice thought she would check them out. The first diorama she came to showcased 4 big canvases with exquisite wooden frames. Each painting depicted a huge collage of people. She noticed a man holding an action figure with a big smile on his face. How childish, she thought. I think I'll move on to the next one. She slowly walked over to the next diorama. She observed 2 big bookshelves filled with hearts that were placed in glass jars. On top of one bookshelf was a big label that said, Female Hearts, and on the other one, the sign read, Male Hearts. Alice noticed 2 wax figures. One figure had his hands spread wide open, dancing around on a twirling mechanism, complete with an audio recording that said, Behold, my delicious collection. The other wax figure was a young woman with red hair who was holding 2 glass jars high above her head. She looked completely crazy, and Alice noticed she was wearing a name tag on her blue dress that said, Hello, my name is Abigail. Alice had enough of looking at this evil scene and decided to go to the next diorama. She walked across the room to the other set of dioramas, thinking that they would somehow be a little easier to look at. She was wrong. The diorama in front of her showcased a nice-looking old lady tightly gripping a meat mallet. An old man who appeared to be her husband, was standing in front of the TV with his back towards her. Alice noticed a big red button that said, "Push me," and so she did. Suddenly, the diorama came to life. The old lady quickly moved towards the old man and slammed her meat mallet down across the back of his wax head. Alice watched in horror as the sweet old lady raised the mallet again high above her head and said, "Oh, how I love it." She brought the hammer down with evil intent, hitting him again. "Oh, how I love it." With each horrifying hit, blood squirted from the wax figure and splashed against the glass housing of the diorama. Alice found herself shaking in pure, unfiltered terror. She quickly turned away from the diorama and looked at all the people sitting in the chairs. She felt the need to scream, but restrained herself. Something is wrong with these people. They act like someone is controlling their minds, she thought. She suddenly felt the urge to have a smoke. She pulled out a cigarette, and just before lighting it, she noticed a no smoking sign on the wall beside her. "Oh, give me a break. Are you kidding me?" She lit the cigarette anyway and ripped the sign right off the wall. She stepped just outside of the door so she wouldn't be bothered by anyone while she was enjoying her smoke. At that moment, the host of the museum appeared on stage, looking at all the people staring at him. "I'm glad you all found your seats. I am the Soul Collector, and tonight is going to be a wondrous night that you will never forget," he said with arms wide open. He took his top hat off and spoke very slowly, as if he were casting some kind of spell. "I want you all to focus every bit of your consciousness on the empty diorama behind me." He paused for a moment, giving them time to do this. "I want you to focus on a very special moment that makes you happy." He made a strange motion with his hands, and everyone started to have uncontrollable seizures. He started to laugh as their souls were ripped from their bodies. Their souls were transformed into wax figures and were now standing in the empty diorama. Alice walked back in the room and said, "Where the hell did everybody go?" The Soul Collector looked at her with great surprise and said, "There's always one of you, damn it." He then transformed himself into his true form, a hideous demon with black skin and red eyes. "I think I'll turn you into one of my statues." Just then, the room went dark, and standing between Alice and the Soul Collector was the Shadow and the Beast. The Shadow was wearing his black trench coat and his classic fedora hat. The Beast was now bigger than any known bear, and his wolf-like head would scare the balls off Satan himself. His fangs looked like shark teeth, and his red eyes now burned with fire. Both Shadow and Beast were emanating black smoke that surrounded their entire bodies. Alice quickly ran away to escape this madness. The Soul Collector looked at the Shadow and asked, "Who the hell are you? And what's with the pet?" "I've been searching for you for a long time, boy." The Beast started to snarl and growl, showing his teeth. The Shadow reached down to pet the Beast on the head and said, "My pet has grown fond of the name Hothead." The Soul Collector took a step back and said, "Why is Hothead looking at me that way?" "He is always hungry. We had an unpleasant encounter with a young boy named Ryan in a park not too far from here. It did not end well for him, the shadow said. The soul collector started to have an uneasy feeling as Hothead suddenly burped a fiery flame. "What do you want from me?" the collector said. The shadow pointed to all the dioramas and said, "These people had a debt to pay to the devil, and before I could collect payment, you stole their souls." The soul collector replied, "They are now my personal artwork, masterpieces like no other." The shadow raised a finger to his lips and said, "Shh." He then pointed at the soul collector, and Hothead pounced quickly into the air. The collector caught Hothead in midair and threw him into the newly filled diorama behind him. The momentum of Hothead's descent completely destroyed the wax figures inside. Hothead didn't stay down for long. He got up and charged at the soul collector like a raging bull. The impact was like a freight train running out of control. They both crashed through the nearby wall, leaving a big dust cloud in their wake. The shadow watched with amusement. The soul collector quickly gathered himself and ran into the statue room. He found a good hiding place behind one of the statues that sat in the back of the room. Meanwhile, Hothead rose up from the collision and started to search for him. He was prowling like a predator, searching for its prey. His search came to a sudden stop just inches away from the statue room. Hothead waited just outside the door, waiting for any trace of movement. He growled so loud that some of the statues exploded. The soul collector peeked out from behind the statue, and Hothead noticed him right away. He smashed through the doorway like a jet plane would crash into a mountain. He ran full speed toward the collector, breaking all statues in his way. Hothead tackled him to the ground and bit down on his face. He had an insatiable hunger that needed to be filled. The soul collector's black skin was impenetrable, and Hothead's sharp teeth could not bite through. The collector started laughing maniacally because he knew that the beast could not hurt him. Hothead was furious. He opened his mouth wider, gripping the collector's head, and tossed him through another wall. The shadow was ever watchful. The fight looked like two Goliaths destroying everything in their path. The collector started to run away, but he proved to be too slow. Hothead quickly caught up with him and drove him into the marbled floor with his mighty paws. The soul collector looked deep into Hothead's eyes as if he could somehow use his magic to turn him into one of his masterpieces. But it didn't work. Hothead now towered over him, and the collector felt the warm drizzle of saliva drip onto his face. He watched with eyes wide open as Hothead opened his mouth wider. He spewed forth fire from the depths of hell like a mighty dragon. The collector's skin burned so hot that it started to boil. He screamed in agony. "No!" Hothead now saw his chance for victory. He bit down on the collector's skull once again. To his delight, he could now taste his blood. He bit his head clean off, crushing his skull in his mouth. He tore the rest of his body, limb from limb, devouring every last morsel. The shadow laughed at the sight. "Ha ha 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 ha! Good boy, Hothead." Alice was outside trying to get into Larry's car. He had the keys and she couldn't get in. She tried to smash the window, but the glass wouldn't break. She heard a strange laughter coming from within the museum, and said, "Screw this, I'm out of here." She took off running towards Gemstone City. Alice managed to run about 50 feet before coming to a complete stop. She was frozen in place and couldn't move. The shadow and the beast stood before her. The shadow said, "Do you think I don't know what you did?" "What are you talking about?" asked Alice. "You have a nasty little habit, don't you, girl?" "What the hell are you talking about? Do you mean my smoking?" 5 years ago, the gemstone forest was burnt to the ground, killing 16 firefighters, exclaimed the shadow. "Yeah? So what?" Alice said. "The cause of that fire was from one of your cigarettes that you carelessly threw out of your car that night." The shadow said, smiling, "What are you trying to say? That I'm responsible for that fire and those deaths?" asked Alice. The shadow nodded and said, "The devil's debts must always be paid, girl. Always." The shadow pointed his finger towards Alice and said, "Get her, Hothead." Hothead pounced on Alice, tearing her apart until nothing was left. In the distance, the Grand Museum of the Macabre collapsed from the battle that had occurred and was no more. The shadow and Hothead once again faded into the wind and were gone. So, do you guys like the sequel just as much as the first one? I hope you did, because I loved it. And I want to give all credit to Daniel Hayes. It was a very well-written story. I can't say I would have written it any better. And I am jealous. I thought I could write stories. Heck, please. But yes, Daniel Hayes, give all the credit to him. And I really hope you guys enjoyed the sequel. And if any of you hadn't listened to the first one, please check out the first one and come and listen to this one. They're both good, but I think this one's better than the first, in my opinion. Nah, I'll say they're both equally good. Very, very well written. But like I said, I hope you guys liked it, and you guys can let me know what you think about it in the comments. And please check out Daniel Hayes' page. I put the links in both videos, Hothead 1 and 2. So check out his other stories because they are magnificent. And his bio and everything else, his Ritzy profile, please check it out. And I'll be back next time with another After Dark Fairy Tales for you guys. To all my new subscribers, I know I said this before, welcome to After Dark Fairy Tales. And I hope you guys are enjoying the stories. If any of you guys are like, I know it's a pandemic out there, and some of you guys are kind of like having cabin fever or probably just a little depressed. I'm hoping that maybe my narration, these stories, kind of like help you get your mind off certain troubles that's going on. So hope you guys are enjoying this as a entertainment wise. And until next time, I will see you guys again with a new one. And until then, good night, my darlings.